What's up, guys? It's Manor Metals, and today we're going to be going over, is the Fed going to raise interest rates again this month in June, or are they going to pause interest rates? Or do you think they're actually just going to stop raising interest rates in general? Now, I'm going to be clear on where I'm at. I personally think the Fed is going to continue raising interest rates, but in a scenario where the Fed decides to pause interest rates, which if they do, and markets are showing that they believe the Fed is going to pause interest rates because the markets are currently rallying. Apple is at all-time highs, Nvidia is at all-time highs, Tesla and other tech stocks are continuing to rise. SPY ETF, futures ES, all these markets are rising. In fact, even silver has been rising. Currently, the spot price of silver is at $24.25 around. So why is this? Why are the markets rallying? Well, obviously I made that clear, because they believe the Fed is going to pause interest rates. Now, I don't believe that. I believe they're going to continue because Powell has said it continuously every single meeting. He says that he does not see a rate pause coming, that he in fact wants to see interest rates down. He wants to see inflation down to 2%. Now, will that actually happen? No, I doubt it. I doubt we will even ever get to see that number in our lifetime with the amount of money that the US has printed. But given in the scenario where even if Powell decides not to raise interest rates, he did say there could be a cutback in lending by banks to shore up their finances and act as the equivalent of a quarter-point rate hike in slowing the economy. So he's saying that even if he doesn't raise the interest rates, if the next case scenario would be that they find a way to slow down on giving loans out in the banks. Now, this is a big deal because when banks slow down on giving loans, businesses have a harder time operating. And if businesses have a harder time getting their cash that they need to operate, they will likely have to close their doors, and a numerous amount of layoffs can begin to happen, which would in fact slow the economy and the markets. Potentially, this could help fight inflation and possibly make the banks safer or absolutely collapse them. When people become fearful, though, that banks are slowing down on loans, and I would even say there probably would be credit crunching, giving people less credit to spend, then they might become suspicious. People might get a little weirded out by that and try to take their money out of the banks, collapsing even more banks. And these banks will most likely not even have the money in their reserve. This is interesting, guys, because the Federal Reserve Board, the one who's in control of the smaller banks, reduced the banking reserve requirements to zero in March 2020. Since that time, banks in the United States have not been required to actually hold any depositor money in the banks. Typically, before 2020, banks were required to have a reserve currency, meaning if you gave the bank $100, they at least were required to reserve $10 or $20. So they had to hold 10 or 20% in their reserves. Banks are no longer required to have any money in the bank for you. The money you put in the bank, what banks do, they're a business. They get your money and they go and invest it, hoping for a return. Now, if you decide to take your money out, like what happened with SLV, the bank collapses because they made a bad investment. Since they have no requirement to have any reserve, they now can do what they want with your money, and if they don't even have to have it in the bank. That's why you'll probably have a really hard time trying to get over $10,000 out of the bank. Now, given that, going into the silver markets, where will silver go in all of this? Well, if the Fed decides to raise interest rates, most likely silver will drop, which is what I'm expecting. And if they don't, we can see a rise in silver, but then I'm actually would be expecting a drop in silver, because all of this deflation, all of this unemployment, all of the markets slowing down would pretty much help the value of the dollar. So given that, I think silver in the coming months will actually drop if it doesn't drop sooner within this next rate hike. Now, my actual outlook on silver, I believe silver is going to rise tremendously. I think silver is going to go beyond new highs, way higher than we did in the 80s or 70s when it was at $50, which was actually because of manipulation as well, which is another story. So given that, a report by X-Bullion last year was talking about how silver mining can run out by 2028, which I don't believe that, but I love to call the warning. In all, Mexico is said to increase its silver production this year and going forth. Now, Mexico is the largest mining country for silver, so that's good. In all of this, the global production for silver fell in 2022 to 822 million ounces. That was due to the pandemic and lower output in China and Peru. Though silver production in Mexico, Argentina, and Russia increased, globally we still fell short on demand. Silver production in Peru was down 7% this month compared to January-April 2022. So we need to increase the demand in silver, we need to increase the supply in silver, and that would be a demand in mining. So most likely we will see that. And as we see a bigger push for cleaner energy like solar, which requires silver to be made, we can expect a greater demand on silver. Approximately 0.7 ounces of silver goes into the making of each solar panel. It doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're doing it in an excessive amount, it's a lot. This is roughly about 90 million ounces of silver demand per year, and Goldman Sachs projects that this demand will climb to 105 million to 150 million ounces this year. And global silver production currently sits at about 840 million ounces a year, and consumption is roughly 1 billion ounces per year. And so there's a gap there, but that gap is filled by 170 million ounces of silver being recycled annually, which helps obviously fill the difference between the supply and demand. But with technology emerging and the demand for technology increasing, most likely we're going to see an offset in the balance of that supply and demand for silver, which would increase the silver price. So that's what I'm expecting. With all this going on, regardless of where you buy at right now, I still think anytime is really a good time to buy. This is not financial advice though, but always dollar average down, guys. Be smart with where you put your money, and don't put it all in one basket at the same time. So dollar average, I always recommend. And even if you bought now, I wouldn't be bummed out, because honestly, I see silver skyrocketing. But before that, I do see a drop, which I will be expecting, and we'll just have to see what the Fed does. I believe June 14th. So keep that day on your calendar, guys. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thanks for tuning in. This is Metnoy Metals. Out.